there was this sense, sort of say 20 years ago, when China joined the World Trade Organization, that it needed an American investment. It needed all those American companies to build factories, make all their electronics in China, and that China needed that for technology transfer to help it develop. Now it thinks it can develop on its own.
Now, this morning, The Times takes a close look at the significance of this week's event in Beijing, where President Xi's government staged a monumental display of high-tech military might in a parade marking 80 years since the end of war with Japan. But what really is the true intent of moments like this? And, crucially, what does it mean for the territory they covet in Taiwan? Richard Spencer is China correspondent for The Times, joins us from Beijing. Hello, Richard.
Good morning.
First of all, on the parade, which you've described as impressive but not endearing, what does China gain from staging events like this?
The first thing to remember always with propaganda generally, any form of sort of mass effort like this, is that it's primarily directed inwards. The first target of events like this is the Chinese people. So it sends them a very strong message, both about themselves and about, of course, the Communist Party, which rules them. It says, you have now reason to be proud of yourselves. You're a major power again. Things weren't good for China over the last couple of 100 years, but now we're the second power in the world. Maybe we'll be the first power in the world. We're much richer than we were, and we're much more militarily powerful than we were. And so, be grateful for what you've got. And also, there's a message of power, the unassailability of the Communist Party internally as well. So that's the first target of this parade. The second target is, of course, the West, and particularly America. It says, don't do anything stupid. We will defend ourselves. We will defend our interests. And we have to be taken seriously on the world stage. And of course, as we've all pointed out, he had President Putin and Kim Jong-un saying, don't think about making us pariahs too, because we pariahs now are quite powerful and can stick together if you try and make us a pariah state. With things like sanctions or trying to sort of cut us out of world bodies. So those are the two messages it was sending very clearly, I think, and very explicitly as well. That was the message being sent by state media.
Is it possible, Richard, to kind of trace how China stands when it comes to military might? Because one of the things from President Xi in this is this declaration of kind of a great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, and actually suggesting that the takeover of Taiwan is unstoppable.
Yeah, I don't think we should get too hyped up about Taiwan, actually. That was not really mentioned that much. The issue with America is a sort of global one. China is saying that we're an alternative model to America. We don't go around invading places, unlike America. At one level, that applies to Taiwan too. Now, of course, they say Taiwan is an internal matter. It's not a foreign country. They say that eventually Taiwan will have to be, brought under the wing of the motherland by one means or another, and they've never ruled out the use of force. But they've also said fairly, less explicitly, but implicitly, that they're not intending to invade Taiwan at the moment unless it declares formal independence. Taiwan is in a very unusual legal situation or geopolitical situation in that legally it is recognized by the UN as part of China, but a part of China that is self-governing from the People's Republic of China, which is run by the Communist Party. So that's open to all sorts of ambiguities. But what China has always said is the red line is Taiwan actually saying we are not part of China. We are an independent, totally separate state. It's not recognized such by the rest of the world, by the United Nations, and China says that must continue to be the case. So there is a Taiwan aspect to this military build-up, in that the most likely trigger for a war between America and China is if there is a war. But so we're told, the Americans have said, whether you believe them or not, that they've been reassured by President Xi that he has no intention of attacking Taiwan in 2027, which is the date that's often given,
Mm.
because that's the date that we know that she has ordered the PLA, the army, to be ready for any conflict with America over Taiwan. But the private assurance apparently is that they wouldn't start anything, as say, unless Taiwan crossed this red line.
Yeah. What then of, I suppose, engagement, relations between China and the US at this moment in time? We've talked to you before on the programme about trade wars, even this year, and tariff wars that have unfolded over the last few months. Is there really a feeling that things could escalate beyond that sort of dispute?
I mean, that is not the sense in China nor in Taiwan, really.
Mm.
I mean, this might all be too blasé. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, and things can escalate out of control very quickly
Sure.
when they start. China is looking, I mean, to be fair, like a lot of the rest of the world, with some bemusement at what's going on in Washington. There was a lot of angry words exchanged when President Trump imposed these massive sort of 100, whatever it was, 134% tariffs on China. But that was sorted out pretty quickly with a sort of, with one of Trump's grand deals. That's admittedly only temporary, but the deadline for reimposing tariffs, high tariffs, keeps being put off. So at the moment, China's paying the lower tariffs, say, than India, which is curious, given that India's supposed to be a freedom-loving democracy, and China obviously isn't. So, and of course, it's China that has the massive trade surpluses with America. So. No one's quite sure how this is all going to end up, but China thinks it can handle the situation. And, there are talks ongoing. And when those talks, turn into a full summit, this desire for Trump to make, big, shouty deals, China thinks it can live with. So there's no sense of panic here. What there is a gradual sense that China doesn't need America anymore. I mean, there was this sense, sort of say 20 years ago when China joined the World Trade Organization, that it needed an American investment. It needed all those American companies to build factories, make all their electronics in China, and that China needed that for technology transfer to help it develop.
Yeah.
Now it thinks it can develop on its own, and it was very striking, the insistence on the parade that all that military kit you saw, they kept saying was entirely homegrown, and there was no there was no sort of Russian kit there, but there was no kit that had been developed on a Russian basis, which has always been the history of Chinese weaponry until the last few years. It was all their drones and laser guns and all that incredible high tech had been developed within China.
Yeah.
So there is this sense that even that economically and strategically they can go their own way and challenge America on their own terms if America decides to cut it off.
Yeah. Richard's fascinating. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.